Hi everyone, welcome to class this week. This week it's our async week and we're talking about project-based learning. And although you'll be going through this video on your own, you will be engaging in some ways this week that are hopefully feel real authentic to you, and hopefully we'll get a lot out of this. I just felt like this asynchronous class, we'll be watching a lot of videos that our time was better spent async, although I'll be available to chat whenever you would like this week. All right, so project-based learning, a couple of things to note will be to make sure to use that document I sent with links. You'll need that to engage in the class, as well as registering for this pblworks.org/register. That's going to be real helpful. And of course, your textbook hopefully will be a good guide for you as well. So you'll be following along with this video, as well as the PowerPoint will be posted. Okay, so this week's class, as I just mentioned, you'll be using the PBL docs. You'll be looking at different websites. There's so many different people who've done amazing things with project-based learning. You'll get time to reflect. You're going to respond to different prompts, and hopefully finally meet a partner or two out there who is engaging as well in a similar grade level to you. And so looking forward to that. Of course, you can see over here all the different things that project-based learning is all about. So I'm looking forward to your participation in this class this week. All right. So here we are, gold standard PBL. If it's gold, it's got to be one of the best, right? So here's some teaching practices that are involved in the strategy of project-based learning. It truly is a phenomenal way to reach and teach your students. It does involve the creation of taking really authentic experiences and creating those experiences for your students. There's a lot of planning and design that go into it. We're going to spend a good portion of learning about PBLs, thinking about the designing and planning, and aligning to the standards. But you can see these other key learning goals that are also really important, and we'll be talking about key knowledge, understanding, and success skills. So these are really the top-notch ways that we can create what is, again, I'm going to say that word, authentic learning experiences for our students. All right, next slide here. I just want to point out these two in particular, the design and plan and aligning to standards. So those are the two that we'll be focused on most as we are working towards the assignment for this part for PBLs, right? I do want to make sure that you recognize the one I haven't pointed to in particular is building the culture, and that's such a vital part of this, is making sure that we have that type of community where our students can be challenged. They can be pushed a little farther sometimes, and so we have to have a culture where they feel supported. So yeah, so those are the ones that we'll be focusing on in this class. Hi guys, sorry if there's a weird pause in there. I paused it for a second. All right, so I just want to kind of point out, so here's this cycle here, and these are teaching practices here. Now this particular cycle that we see here, this circle, are the design elements. All right, and these are the parts that are really vital, right? So this, under this designing and planning, here we go. Here's our design elements that we're going to work on. So we're going to learn about each of these as we go through. We're going to actually be using Fairfax County's Portrait of a Graduate in order to kind of think about some of these as we cycle through learning about project-based learning. All right. as you can see here, this particular cycle looks at 7 different design elements. And I think I might be repeating myself. So I think I weirdly, awkwardly paused again. So hopefully you stuck with me because now we're getting to the good stuff. What's going to come next is you're actually going to watch a really amazing project called Tiny Houses. And I simply think this is one of the best ways that we can kick off learning about PBLs is watching a really premier one. So you're going to be watching along this and you're going to be pausing. I put this in something called Ed Puzzle. So you'll be answering some questions as you go along. So enjoy Tiny Houses and I'll see you soon. Hi there. I hope you enjoyed Tiny Houses rather. I just, there's so many parts where you could just see the kids so engaged, right? And also I hope you saw how many different subject matters, right? So from the Cheez-Its during math and all the talking and those interpersonal skills that were those 21st century skills we need our students to have around collaboration. And of course, she had them reading in groups. Just really amazing work in that particular project. So, all right, so the next thing I want to talk about is this middle part, the key knowledge, understanding, and success skills. And so I want to talk about where we get those from. So I know many of you have probably been pretty accustomed to the Virginia SOL website, but if you're not, this is a chance we're going to look at today. So switching my screen over here. Hi. Sorry, I know there's weird blurbs and bumps through this whole thing. But here we are, the Virginia Department of Education. And this is where we find our standards. Over here, the standards of learning, the SOLs are here, and you can see them all the way up and down here. This is the social studies one, the history and social science. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And you can see it's actually, we're going to have a review process that's going to start happening. But right now, our most updated was adopted in 2015. And here are all the standards of learning. Here, this first column here is where we want to look for our grade levels, right? So K1, 2, 3. We know 4th grade is Virginia Studies. Here in 5th and 6th grade, which are these two right here, they've some, it depends on the district that you're in. Mostly this one is 5th grade and this one is 6th grade, but you can check those out as well. But let's just, for example, go to 2nd grade. It downloads. I'm going to open it up. Here we are, right? And so here's where we find these standards of learning that we want to include in our PBL, right? This first section, 2.1, and this is true for all of the ones, K through 6, is it starts with skills here, and then it goes into those categories you probably recognize from the themes. We have history. See some names there that you might recognize. Here's a geography, some important things that they might need to know, economics, and I believe that's the end for that. So yeah, so this is where hopefully if you want to do something around 2nd grade, this is where you will find what is important to teach in social studies in the 2nd grade, right? So there we go. Of course, you can see the other grades there. Just so you know, a PBL is going to involve many different subjects, right? So part of that is part of the interdisciplinary greatness of it, okay? So here is math. You know, it's very well could have math. And so again, we scroll down and then we find these standards here. Just briefly show you here is science. I know they were supposed to adopt some new ones, so I'm not sure. 2010, so they're probably getting ready to adopt some new ones. And then finally, English. Okay. And here's all English, and so it's a little bit different the way I think it's done. And you can scroll down for the SOLs here, right? So standards of learning and different things there. Lots of stuff there for English. Okay, for language arts. And just so you know, we're going to be hitting these fine arts in a couple of weeks. All right. All right, so hopefully that little foray into the SOLs was helpful. So again, here are these websites. Of course, this will be clickable on the PowerPoint if you need those links. And that is where these learning goals come from, right? So key knowledge, understanding, and success skills. All right. Your textbook, I just want to say, really does hit on this. It notes that all projects include a focus on these skills. So we're talking about here the idea of critical thinking, collaboration, the ability to self-manage. It also talks about the really important parts of perseverance and creativity, which I know we don't always have as something as pinpointed as that, but really a part of it. And then they obviously talk about the ability to think critically. So I know that was all here towards the beginning, but it's something important to point out. All right, next up, you're going to watch a series of videos. They're short, and they're called Keys to PBL, and they're really great. All right, so we're going to hit on a lot of these gold standards, and you're going to respond in a couple of different ways to the videos after that. All right, so let me show you here. This first one, you're going to watch part 1 and part 2, and of course those are available on your doc there. So you'll click on those, you'll watch these Edtopia videos, and then, oops, I'm covering it up, and then you will write about it. You're going to use what's called a rose, bud, thorn reflection, so visible thinking, and hopefully you can check out your friends as well. All right, so go ahead, go watch those videos, and I'll see you afterwards. Okay, here we are at sustained inquiry. All right, so in a PBL, this questioning that goes on for the students while they are thinking through projects, critically thinking, it's repeated over and over again as we ask them to go deeper, asking deeper questions, especially when they're confronted maybe with challenging problems, maybe planned or unplanned, and teaching them how to locate resources to help them, and that these resources don't have to be traditional like books. They can be through exploration in different information sources. So maybe trying different experiments through trial and error, things like that. It's also really important to help them through this, as the process, it should be repeated until it's really this evidence that they've gotten, whatever it might be, whatever outcomes they might be thinking about, is found to be satisfactory, right? Okay, so now I want you to go watch this video, part 3. So you'll pause me for a second and watch that part 3 of PBL. So press pause. All right, next up, I'm going to talk about authenticity. This is such a huge part of this, because the creation of something real, of something that matters, is huge for student motivation. When you're connected to a project, it allows the student to not only engage deeper, but have a more meaningful connection to the real world often. And that's a huge part of a PBL, is this real world component. So maybe it's solving an actual problem in your school. And so through authenticity, whether it's the suggestions I have up there, it really speaks to what the students' concerns are, their interests. It identifies perhaps with their culture, identities, just really their lives, right? And that's what's really important, authenticity. So now I would like for you to go share your experiences with authenticity. So you'll go to the Padlet, type yours in, and then make sure you read your friends. And hopefully we'll have time to share these out in our next class. Student voice and choice. So I want you to think about a time in school where you were given a choice, that your opinion in what you were getting ready to learn mattered, and what that felt like. I guarantee you are more invested in your learning, and that's a huge part of a PBL, is this sense of ownership that this kind of project can create. So giving students some type of input and control. It could be, some questions they generate, resources they find. Of course, for you, the teacher side, that allows a lot. You have to be really flexible and adaptable. You have to give up, some of that locus of control. But it can be a really vital part to the students' learning, is this ability to have a voice, to have agency, right, in what we're learning about. So, perfect. All right, so the last one, I'm a huge John Dewey fan, if you didn't know that. One of the major reasons I'm a fan is his huge advocacy for reflection. I love this quote, we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on the experience. And so I think this is a really important thing to think about, right? So whether it's in formal or informal ways, that we need to think about the things that we do. And this is a direct component, an important component of a PBL, and it should be very explicit. Like, now I need you to go write in a journal, or I need you to go discuss this over with a peer, right? And so making sure that we add these part times for reflection throughout our project-based learning experiences. Hi there. So I found a video from the past of me talking about critique and revision, and I liked what I had to say about it, so I'm going to press play on here, and you can see me from a while ago talking about this.
So I think one of the most important things that we can teach, that I actually think it could be great for some adults, is actually teaching how to both give and receive feedback. And PBL has a natural way of having this be part of the process. So teaching how to give constructive peer feedback in a way that feels good from both ends will be a vital part of a PBL. And there's a lot of ways to have that be naturally put in via rubrics, places for formal time for that peer interaction, which is also really key, right? We want our students talking to each other, and when they can talk about their work, the outcomes of that can be great. All right, so it's really this common sense acknowledgement of the importance of making our work better, right? Right, so it's not about criticism, but it's about the improvement. Can be really a great part of this.
So I just thought.
I think
I just thought, why did I need to make that? Because I already had a really great video about that. So hopefully that's sent home the ideas of critique and revision for you. Hey there. So, yeah, I found another one where I talk about public product. And so I'm going to look at that phase right there. I'm just going to press play and let that version of Mandy Bean talk to you.
Okay, so here we are talking about the public product. And they give you those 3 major reasons for why this is important. But I just want you to kind of think about this a little bit, right? So, what often happens when students are only making presentations to their classmates or their teacher? The stakes are not very high, so they might slack off or not take it seriously. They may not care as much about the quality of their work. So when students have to present or display to someone outside of their normal audience, so that bar gets raised a little bit, honestly, because no one wants to look bad in public. There's a certain degree of anxiety that can be healthy, a motivator of sorts, making sure, though, that the anxiety isn't too much to detract from the performance or product. So the trick is to find kind of that sweet spot where there's they're able to really find that satisfying way of presenting. And what you can do to help is make sure they're well prepared, right? When you're prepared, you feel better. And so a public product can have also a huge impact on your classroom and your school culture, creating almost a learning community where students and teachers are engaged in what is being learned, and getting more feedback, right? Which we know can be a really vital part of the learning process. So the next several slides, you're going to be next watch the Edtopia video. I think you'll find it to be really interesting. And then you're going to be reading through some driving questions, some examples, and why those are good. So please read through those. Why it's important to be flexible while you're doing this, okay? It's not a linear process, so read that. And then you'll do read about the difference and watch a video on the difference between a project and what is project-based learning, okay? And after you do that, you're going to be going to what's called an answer garden. Click on...
All right, I'm going to stop it there because I'm not sure I'm going to do the answer garden. But I've definitely thought that version of myself did a nice job with this public product. There we go. I just wanted to quickly show you some of the things I just talked about. This is from Fairfax County, and it's just a graphic cartoon of project-based learning, right? So it's a little overwhelming, I think, but I think it is one that you can kind of look through and see if you're a kind of learner that relates in this way. All right. So here I am at the driving question. So you're going to be engaging in a driving question in order to focus the inquiry. When we talk about it, it must be open-ended. That means it's got more than one right answer. It needs to be engaging, and it needs to be crafted in such a way so that inquiry, right, questioning, is involved. So if you can Google an answer, I've said this before, if you can Google the answer, what's the point of building a project around it, right? Additionally, if it's a question that sounds like an essay question on a test, it's probably not going to be a great one to include. All right, so some other driving questions that we can use is, how can we as environmentalists help our school begin a recycling program? Right? You can notice there's a pattern coming up here. How can you as a city planner develop a park that will encourage kids to exercise 60 minutes a day? how can we as architects design a building that uses natural energy sources? So I'm going to pause there, and if you want to turn to page 35 in your book, there's a lot of real world roles, right? Environmentalists, city planners, architects, astronauts, curators, right? That are listed here. Really, I want every one of you to kind of think through what would be a real world role in your question in order to make that as authentic as possible. And of course, the driving questions, how we write them, start on page kind of 37. And they even give you this great template on page 39. So I just wanted to make sure that those two are pointed out to you. There we go. Many of us are linear people, so when we begin to think about project-based learning, we often think events have to occur chronologically, but sometimes when we're planning, we might plan different segments of it while we're doing it, so we have to be kind of a little bit more flexible in our thinking around it. Alrighty, so one of the biggest confusions is the projects and PBLs aren't really the same thing. And so I've got something really quick for you to read, so you'll find that on your links, as well as watching the PBL works doing projects versus project-based learning. And you'll see where projects are terrific too. I'm not dissing projects in any way, but that project-based learning is a lot richer, a lot deeper, and typically a little bit more long lasting. And this is actually a great place for me to kind of talk about the length of a PBL. A PBL can be as long as short as you want, right? One might last a week in kindergarten if you're like doing a PBL around learning about community leaders, where one in an upper grade and maybe involving working on a better environmental program for your school could be a month long or 2 months long, right? And it might take an entire quarter. So, and remember, it's that integration that makes it so great, right? So you're covering a lot of topics. So you don't have to just do this at social studies time, right? As we saw in tiny houses, it can be included throughout the day. We saw her doing it, some during math and some during her daily 5 time, her language arts time. So it's just a good point to bring that up too, right? It can be as long and as short, right? So I do want you to do a quick, I decided I would do Answer Garden. And so I'm not sure that's your link, but you will share your answer and that will be on your links page. So you only get 20 characters to say what is different about the two. Finally, you'll go to Flipgrid and post some of your final thoughts. And just tell me what do you think about PBLs? Are you excited to engage in them? Do you have any ideas for what you want to do this semester? I will say you don't have to enact any part of this in your field hours and your schools and your internships. You just need to make sure that maybe it's something you would use in the future, okay? Here are some final kind of links for you, and these are all on the PowerPoint. So there's even one there about PBLs being done in pandemic times. All right, so last thing that you will do today is go see who your partners are. Okay, so check out your partners, see who they are. Here are some famous duos in history, and I wish you well, and I look forward to all your responses. Take good care, and I will see you next week.